Now, you could also imagine the culture as the collection of all knowledge. Now, that's fine. Now, then you got to think about what knowledge is. And that's a tough thing to get a handle on. So, because there's different definitions of knowledge. We, in many technical situations in our culture, we privilege factual knowledge. And we think of that as knowledge. So, for example, if you're going to be an engineer or a physicist, someone who's really dealing with things, there are certain rules that apply to the operation of things, and you have to know what those are. And those don't necessarily have much to do with how you behave. You know, if you're an engineer and you go to work, you work with things and you have to know how the things work. Now, you also have to be part of a culture, because if you're not, you're going to not get along with the rest of the engineers and they're going to toss you out. So you have to have both forms of knowledge. But we're not interested in the moment precisely about the factual knowledge. We're more interested in the knowledge that makes you acceptable to other human beings, and that enables you, while you're operating in your own life, to negotiate the social structure in such a way that you can be successful. And successful would mean, well, you get to live. That would be one definition. There's some probability that you might find an intimate partner. That's another element of success. You're not suffering to the point where your own existence is intolerable, you know, and you're going to survive for some prolonged period of time with some amount of security. And so that's what you're, that's what you're trying to do. And I would say, to the degree that you're well enculturated, which is that you're a good representation of your culture's knowledge insofar as it's relevant behaviorally, then you're much more likely to be successful. Okay, so we're going to equate that form of knowledge with the possibility of succeeding. That makes you, well, you could call it emotional intelligence, although I never would call it that, because there's actually no such thing. But it's more, it's knowledge about how to act. You know, and it's very, very important, that knowledge. So just think about what you're all doing in this class, right? Most of you don't know each other. There's maybe 200 people in this class. 3 of you are pretty damn crazy. Really, you know, and probably about 10 of you are like on the edge. So, but there you all are, sitting there peacefully, right? You're following a rule code, and you're really following it. First of all, you're all sitting in your own chair, right? You're not sitting on the lap of someone next to you, right? And that makes you laugh, right? Because what would happen if someone did that? What would happen? Well, you know, a little flurry would break out, because all of a sudden a primate is doing something that a primate's not supposed to do. And that opens up an area of the unexpected and the crazy, right? And God only knows what's going to happen when a little spot opens up where the unexpected and crazy emerges. You know, we don't like those spots. And you can see this in your own behavior. So, for example, if you're walking down Bloor Street and you happen to come across someone who's self-evidently homeless, and they're wandering down the street and they're gesturing and they're talking to themselves, there's a bunch of things you're going to do. The first thing is you're going to glance and look away. And then you're going to make a relatively wide berth around the person, and you're going to try not to make eye contact, generally speaking. And the reason for that, think about that. The reason for that is the space that that person inhabits is undetermined by cultural agreement, right? You don't know what the person will do. And so all you do is walk around that space, because God only knows what might happen if you don't. Probably nothing, because the person is preoccupied by whatever demons happen to be chasing them. But you're not going to take that chance. And so you all come in here, and I mean, look, you're pretty much all dressed the same, you know, roughly speaking. Acceptable variation, but nothing outlandish. So you get to be individual, but not peculiar, I think. Let's see. So far, it looks okay. Right? And you know where you're supposed to sit. And I bet you, how many of you sat in the same seat you sat in the first day? Yeah, so a good proportion of you. How many didn't? Okay, well, you will soon, because you'll have established your little territory, you know, and it will be familiar to you, and you'll gravitate towards it, and you'll be happy about that, because you'll start to become familiarized with the people in your immediate vicinity, and they didn't kill you the first time, so they might not kill you the second time, right? And you're all participating in a kind of collective drama, right? So what's the nature of this room? What does it look like? What's it called? It's a lecture theater, right? Why? because there's a drama going on, right? And you're the audience, and I'm hypothetically supposed to be providing the drama. And we all know that because that's how the room is set up. And when you come in here, you obey the room. You do what it tells you. There's chairs and you sit in them. And when I'm talking, generally speaking, you don't. Maybe you want to. Hopefully, if I'm speaking properly, then you don't care because you're happy to listen. And the rule is you're supposed to look at me and listen, and you're all following that rule. And, you know, all of that is because you're very much enculturated, and you're sane enough to follow the damn rules. And one of the things you might think about this, and this is where I thought the psychoanalysts kind of went astray, is that the psychoanalysts tended to think that you were sane if your interior psychological structures were integrated and well put together. So your psyche was sort of something inside your head, roughly speaking, and sanity was something that was an individual issue. But I think, you know, another way of looking at that, and it's a more powerful way of looking at it, I think, is that you're hardly self-regulatory at all. All you have to do is behave well enough so other people can stand being around you, and you can outsource the problem of your own sanity. Because as soon as you get a little weird, if you have people around you, they'll just tell you. And so you don't have to remember how not to be weird. You just have to pay enough attention to other people around you so that when they indicate by not listening to you or by not laughing at your jokes or by raising an eyebrow or by saying something smart about what you just did, that you stop and reconsider and go on in your sane manner. So it's also why people who are tremendously isolated often, you know, there's a loop there. They're a little queer to begin with, so to speak, because, you know, there's something wrong with their ability to behave, and then they get isolated and things just go seriously astray as a consequence of that. So anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of your knowledge is actually knowledge about how to behave, right? And that's the sort of knowledge that's really critical for psychological stability. It's not related in any real sense to the world, to the knowledge you have about the structure of the objective world. And you kind of know that because animals are perfectly capable of surviving. Even complex animals like chimpanzees, they don't know a damn thing about the objective world, right? And their primary reality is social. Okay, so